Hooray. You're recording now. Whoops. There we go. Crowd is pouring in. Hey, everybody. Hope you all are having a great Wednesday so far.
Indeed, love it.
We do love to see it.
They heard you were going to be on, man.
Hey, you know what?
It's the Merrick Fan Club.
I gotta get me one of those. We'll have decoder rings, the whole setup, you know? Real throwback to the 1950s radio shows. My father always said I had a face for radio, so there you go. Classic joke.
Yeah. Voice for it, at least.
Let's see. It's already almost the end of September, huh, Bill?
Time to make those content strategies for 25, right?
I was gonna say time to make some apple cider donuts, but yes, also do that. Yeah.
Budget season for a lot of us.
Mm-hmm.
Big stuff going on. All right.
Conferences, etc. It's gonna be great.
Give it another minute. So we usually do a icebreaker, type question,
Yeah.
for those of us who are waiting around for things to get started. Usually we talk about it ahead of time, but today we did not.
We did not hammer that one out. I'm trying to think of good ones, but they're all I don't know. I couldn't think of one that popped.
All right.
What's your favorite part about fall there, Bill? And other people in the chat, let me know what your favorite part about fall is too. Mine is very kind of hackneyed, but apple picking. I miss it this year because I can't go. I can't go, but I'm gonna get me a big old bag of those Granny Smith. My wife makes a nice pie, even though she hates it. So there you go.
It's
Football, nice.
yeah. Apple picking is fun, but I don't know. Like who can eat all those apples? It's a lot of work. You had to go pick the apples, and then
hmm
you have to find people to take all your apples, basically, because you only want
Well,
a
again,
few,
you got to
right?
make pie, you got to make sauce, you got to make crumble, you got to make cobbler, you got to make butter, you got to make
Tailgating, tailgating.
you
Love
know what?
it.
That's what it is. I'm not even gonna lie though, it is the ability to actually wear all the flannels I own again because it's been a long, hot summer and I have a whole wardrobe full of clothes that I can just not wear right now. It's great.
All right. Um, I'm on the host page. I don't want to be on that page. Okay, Barrett, let's do it.
Let's hop in. Yeah, let's do this. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. Do you want to kick it off? Or you know what? I'll kick it off.
I'm gonna
Welcome,
let you.
everyone, to the latest episode of Analytics in Action. We're here to talk today about, data, analytics, and specifically embracing data and AI to reinvent your content marketing. Basically, what tools are out there to help marketing people and associations in general, to just better reach their members with, save some time and work smarter, not harder, as they say. As you can see on the screen, I'm Merritt Rolfing, Senior Marketing Manager here at Association Analytics. So I have a bit of a taste of what it can mean to save a little time when you're doing that marketing. And Bill's here, of course. Bill Conforti, our SVP of Strategy and Solutions. Say hello, Bill.
All right, hello everyone. Good to be back with the webinar series here. Thanks, Merritt, for
Yeah,
joining.
always.
So
Happy to be
yeah,
here.
we're talking about data and AI. It's specifically with content marketing, but kind of like we'll bleed into marketing in general. As always, we're going to have intro and polls. We're going to talk about really quickly about the evolution of AI and marketing, kind of like the crawl, walk, run sort of thing, and where we are with that. This is not a heavy duty, technology focused webinar where we get deep into AI stuff, but it's more about how to kind of reset things and get ourselves back into or refocused on how we can really use some of the low hanging fruit and the low hanging tools to help us out with our content. As always, we have 3 ways that you can do that. There are lots of ways, but we always break it down into 3, or almost always at least. So we'll talk about those 3, and then we'll recap and answer some questions at the end. But do want to emphasize, as always, this is meant to be a discussion, not a lecture. you'll find out, that a lot of a lot of these things are topics, that we're struggling with, just like you. We're learning about these things, and we want to invite you to share your experiences and mistakes, anything like that. That would be a benefit for the group.
Yeah, I'd
And
love to hear what people are curious about, what they want to do, what they want to do with AI and this sort of stuff too. So yeah, like Bill said, let's make it a discussion. Let's have a conversation about this. So leave something in the chat for us.
all right. And while we have your attention, we do have one coming up next month. Tell us about it, Mary.
Oh yeah, so it's obviously Wednesday, October 30th, one day before the spookiest day of the year, of course. Halloween Eve, I guess. So there you go. To be 5 reasons analytics scares people off, and maybe why it's not so scary, right? We, being association analytics, talk to a lot of associations about analytics, and oh, Bill, there you go. You're not coming through very clearly, Bill. Just so you know, it sounds a bit distorted. It could be a bit of an echo. He does have a bit of an echo. I think the room he's in. Anyway. Um, 5 reasons analytics scares people off. We talked to a lot of associations about analytics, and some people are just kind of nervous about it, curious about it, but kind of look askance at it about what it could mean, what it could do, the positives and negatives, all that sort of thing. We want to kind of explore the spooky parts, and kind of assuage some fears as well. So if you want to sign up, like I said, October 30th, 3 p.m., scan that QR code, or go to that URL on our website. And then just kind of moving forward, as far as who Association Analytics is, well, it's me and Bill and a team of other great people who love analytics, love data, love associations, and we are the creators of the industry-leading SaaS analytics platform Acumen, designed for people like you in the audience to help you better understand your members, use all your data as constructively as possible. We provide really comprehensive data solutions, right? What to do with your data, where to put your data, what insights you can draw from it, and just we provide and expertise, both in these webinars. If you go to our website, check out around the different blog posts, the case studies, the white paper we produced. We have a conference next month, Predict, where we're going to be talking with all of our users about the best ways to use analytics to grow associations. But really, the key to it all is we make your data work for you. And that's a bigger thing every single day for associations, is to leverage all that vital information you've been collecting all these years, make it use it as a resource, as so many people have been doing already. I think it's time we helped associations to make that big leap into analytics. That's us.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, Mary. Okay. So before we jump into polls, just really quickly, all right, who knows what this is? First one in the chat gets a gold star.
Kudos, a delicious kudos bar.
Okay. Anyone?
No one?
A
It's a
line of
line
that.
craft. Very good.
Association membership by dating. Okay,
Get
good.
out of here, Barbara. My dating lifeline, she says.
The bell curve. Okay.
Arrhythmia? Nice, Alan. All right.
All right.
Interesting.
Okay. All right. So I'm a bit surprised that this wasn't identified, but this is the Gartner hype cycle. All right. And it's kind of like there's the early technology trigger. There's this massive sort of hockey stick growth in visibility and expectations. Right. So you have this peak, then very often there's naturally a big letdown or a trough, the trough of disillusionment, as it's called. And then sometimes, for the good technologies, they kind of make their way back up the slope, right? The slope of enlightenment, and then they reach what they call the productivity. So this is kind of like the life cycle of a new technology. And for according to Gartner, like generative AI is kind of up here. I think for me, it's already a little bit past that. It's kind of like heading down towards this trough. We're a couple years into this now, and it has done a lot of amazing things. But I still think our own expectations have kind of outpaced what's actually available, or at least the amount of it that we've made available to ourselves, right, through our knowledge and through our adoption and so forth. So according to Gartner, they do expect that generative AI, LLMs, that sort of thing, will reach the plateau in 2 years' time. All right, so kind of interesting. The idea for me is, and I don't know if you agree, tell me if you do, a couple of years ago, or at least a year ago, there was this very feverish pace of change, and there still is, right? There was this wall-to-wall coverage, and there still is to a degree. But for me, there was much more FOMO associated with that. Like I would, on a day-by-day basis, I would think, the AI world is passing me by, and I need to stay abreast, and I need to really stay fully engaged with that. And now it's kind of settled down a bit. I don't feel that at least as acutely on a day-to-day basis, and it's kind of faded to the background a little bit, right? And so it's kind of I don't know. Does that resonate with the group? Does anyone think that's true, or you disagree with that completely? I'd love to hear about that. So this is a weird analogy, but I thought of it, today. I was in Maine recently, and I went to one of these roadside lobster and clam shacks, delicious food and everything. And
Delicious.
they had an outdoor seating area, which was quite, charming, like right on the water and everything. But I mean, I can't describe to you how badly it smelled to sit in there. And there was people sitting there, and they had picnic tables out, and I sat there, and the group that I was with, they didn't really complain about it too much. So we sat there, and we were just kind of chatting for, I don't know, 5, 6 minutes. The food came out, and by the time the food got to us, I couldn't smell it at all. And it just was into the background, and I just became used to it, and it didn't bother me at all. So anyway, so all that to say is that I feel like that sort of happened the same way with AI. I don't feel that nagging to depends on the industry. Yeah, I don't feel that nagging to study it as much and to uh, stay abreast and to really adopt it and push for it in the organization as much as I once did. Not to say that's not important and those things aren't happening, but it's just less of a something that I think about on a day-by-day basis. So that's one of the reasons why we wanted to talk about it, because I think it's easy to happen. And I want to make sure that, I mean, there's still a lot of very accessible and easy ways that we can use AI to and data, of course, to make things easier for us. So all of that by introduction to today's topic. So with that, if you would be so kind as to get your phones out, we're going to go to today's polls.
I was going to say, Alan in the chat did note that it does depend on industry when it comes to kind of where they are on the curve, right? Like I agree with you. I think there's a little bit of I feel like they're getting a bit more iterative as opposed to, um, I don't know, game changing with the different versions of various LLMs and things like that. But I think you're right. It does kind of depend on the industry. Anyway, sorry.
All right, perfect. All right, here we go. First question. What percentage of your content marketing is personalized based on member data?
Great question.
So if we're wondering how to join, in case we don't know, if you use the QR code on the left, you can participate. There's Q&A and there's polls. So you want to press the button that says polls, and the polls will just come up automatically. Just choose the one that fits best. So usually I would have separate categories for 0 and separate categories for 100. So zeros today are in luck. You can pretend that your number is like 24. And if anyone would have chosen 100, then I don't want you to be confused with the 77. So let us know if 100 is you in the chat, and we will all silently applaud you. Or maybe
One more delicious kudos bar. Yeah, there you go.
Maybe I'll audibly applaud you. All right. Okay, 71%. All right. All right, I'm gonna let it slide on this one. I don't like the level of participation on the poll, but that's okay. I think the by percentage, I think this is roughly what we thought. A lot of us
This makes sense. Yeah.
are dabbling. So who said 76 to 100? Would love to hear
Kind of
about
get a
how you're
sense of
making
what,
that happen. Yeah,
yeah,
tell us
what's it look like? Yeah,
tell
because
us
I'd
the
like to
quick
know that
story.
too. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Next question. How often does your association use AI in your content marketing? Never, rarely, sometimes, often, or always. Yeah, so this is um, okay, often 33,
I've been seeing this get talked about a lot more on like places like associations now, and I know obviously at ASA annual there was more talk about using AI more, and it certainly is something that is useful, but it's about understanding. I think we mentioned collaborate a couple of times as well, but it's in the air. It's just whether people are actually leveraging it and then to what end. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Yeah, this is an interesting one, right? I mean, the wording of the question leaves open to some interpretation, which we'll kind of talk about. Like, hey, what do you mean by that, right? Do you mean generating the content? Do you mean delivering the content? Do you mean marketing it, the actual marketing the content? So lots of different ways that we could look at that. So yeah, a third of us, a little more than a third, are never using AI for our content marketing. So if you said never, if you would just give us a little indication in the chat, is that because of you don't have the resources, or you're just not sure how to do it, or you have a policy against it? Any of those, what's the reason? Or you just haven't got around to it yet? Whatever it is,
those make yeah.
would love to hear why the answer is never. And likewise, if anyone is using it often, good for you. And that'll be a great segue to our next question. All right, don't be shy. All
All
those
means, yeah.
nevers,
We want to hear from you.
speak up. Speak up. Okay, so a lot of us. Wonder if someone changed their vote based on that. So okay, so lack of resources and training. Okay, well, maybe this will help in a small way. When again,
Perfect.
this is not specific tools and hands-on training, but I think this should give you some ideas. And yeah, if you wanted to reach out, we'd be happy to point you in the right direction. And there's
Yeah.
lots of free resources out there that can get you started. So okay, so next one, a lot of us, we kind of think of AI as, we only really think about generative AI, and then we only really think about ChatGPT or similar. So aside from that, right, ChatGPT or similar LLM that you might be used to using, what AI tools are you currently using in your marketing? And this one is a word cloud. You can put in whatever you want, and I'll give you a minute to type some things in. Don't worry about typos. Copilot is good, great.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Uh, uh, Image generator, good.
Oh, yeah, of course. Looks like Michelle in the chat, they use AI for wordsmithing, not for generating content itself. Michelle, I love that personally, as someone who is both a writer and a marketer. You do similar things. You don't want to make it sound a little bit better, softer, better, something like that. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah.
definitely a
I
valuable way to do it.
consider I consider wordsmithing part of content generation. I think it's rare, right? I mean, we use that terminology, but I mean, I don't think many of us are, generating content soup to nuts, right, without human intervention. So and we'll talk a little bit about that, but I think that's kind of where a lot of us are. Photoshop, Grammarly, that's kind of like an old school, like early adopter. You don't really think about that, but people have been using that for
It's
years.
true, yeah.
Canva is good. Awesome. Okay, cool. This is really good. If you think of any more, there'll be lots of maybe something that we'll say later on. We'll kind of
Good
prompt you a
one.
little bit, and you can add that stuff in the wait until AI becomes better at what it does. Okay. Yep. I'm not sure how long you'll be waiting, right? But
A few thousand days, that's all. That's what the CEO of OpenAI said. A few
yeah.
thousand days is all we have to wait for. So there you go.
All right. Yeah, so one of the reasons why we asked this question, and it seems like a lot of you kind of have it nailed, is that probably there's some tools that you're using that have AI built in that you don't necessarily think about, right? Of course, right, the kind that we're going to mostly talk about today, there's content development, and the regular LLMs are great for that. Tool called Jasper, I think it's one called Copy.ai. Those are good for actually creating content. I mean, Jasper in particular does it across different types of media and consistent with your brand guidelines and the tone and all this kind of things that you can do.
Oh, indeed,
One
yeah.
of the other things that, and we're just really starting to experiment with this, one of the things it's great at is repurposing content, right? So that's one of the things that we've been talking about for years. And it's like, yeah, you really should do that. But AI kind of helps to make it more achievable, right? I mean, you spend a lot of time and effort to put together something like a webinar or a course, and you want to get some mileage out of that in terms of your marketing. So there's predictive analytics. I'm not going to spend time on it now because we're going to talk about it later. Marketing automation. This is an old school technology, but more and more it includes AI elements in that. There are content recommenders. Think about the nuts and bolts that go behind like Netflix and Spotify. Can use similar things to determine like what's the next piece of content that is going to be relevant for me. There's social media automation. If you use something like Hootsuite, it's going to help you, among other things, like schedule when's the best time to put out your post and things like that. So there are SEO, right? There are AI elements to a lot of the tools that some of us are using already. All right, so this one is evolution of AI marketing and marketing. This is like a crawl, walk, run sort of thing. The first one, the approach, the getting started. So this is kind of where a lot of us are now. It's like we're using we're using ChatGPT for things like wordsmithing. A lot of us are at least doing that. So a lot of today's chat is going to be in this area. The next one is more customized solutions or combination solutions. So you might use the generative AI to help with the content. You might have human intervention to review and edit and approve that content. And then you might use one of these tools with machine learning to decide which customers get what communications, right? So I think that's kind of where some of the things that we're going to talk about today. And then the last one is more like that transformative generative AI. And the best way I could describe that is without human intervention, right? It's other stuff. But in their example, this one comes from McKinsey. It's think about going into Home Depot or Lowe's, and they have a fully autonomous system that explains to you how to do the different projects that you might want to do, right? So it's they're not even really involved in it. So the blue area is kind of like, I think that's kind of where most of us are today, and that's kind of where where this talk is. We're not still crawling really, but we're walking, but it's maybe a little unsteady.
We have stood
That's
up and we're
really,
leaning against something. Yes,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
All
yeah.
right. Okay. And before we go on, I want to remind everybody, 20 minutes in, that don't forget about what's under the surface, right? So we're a data company. Obviously, data is the foundation to not just AI, but to all sorts of things. But you really do have to stay concerned about the basics, right? Collection, wrangling the data, integration, modeling, cleanliness, and all that kind of stuff, because it's both your analytics data for decision making, but it's also your training data for all of these different AI applications that we're going to talk about. So with that, we're going to unveil the big three, right? The three ways that we're going to use marketing, use data and AI to have success with our content marketing. All right, so here they are. First thing is we're going to look at how we're going to use our data and some AI tools to create highly personalized content. So this will be we've talked about this before, not in exactly this way. So this will be a little bit different. We're not talking about content necessarily in the broader sense here. We're talking more about like communications, right? The content that we're going to send, to Merit, right? About some specific type of content. So next we'll jump into predictive analytics. Again, been talking about this for years, but it's a lot more accessible now, right? You don't need fancy tools and things necessarily to do this, but you can get some of the benefit, even if you don't have like a data scientist or an analyst on site. And last one is content automation, and we'll get to this one, but just think about it in this sense. We're talking more about less about how to create or generate the content, and this one is more about how to deliver it. So with that, I want to dive into each of these in a little bit more detail and see how they can help you drive success. So before I do that, Merritt, I'm going to ask you, put you on the spot, see if you have
Oh no.
any comments or anything to add before we moved into personalized content.
No, I mean, obviously, this is something that's near and dear to my own heart. It's important to be able to send a message that rings true to that person as opposed to whoever. But I'm excited to explore this with you, though.
Okay. All right. So first one, personalized content. And so here we're going to be talking, of course, about segmentation. I want to talk about the personalized content creation. So again, this is not, big pieces of durable content, like, white papers and courses and things like that. This is more like how to craft a compelling message to merit that's going to engage him and want him to remain interested, right?
Very
And
hard to
then
do. Yes.
yeah, and then we're going to talk about dynamic versus static personalization. So those are terms you may not have heard those specifically, but it'll be clear, what we're talking about when we get there, and how you can kind of use both of those to, to jumpstart things with your marketing. So if you're doing any personalization at all, and most of us are, then you're probably a little bit ahead of the curve. Okay, so with segmentation, this is our old friend, right? You've seen this graphic before. It looks like we have this big homogeneous group of blue members, right? Whatever that means. But we have data that we can use to filter and to segment. And what looks like this big homogeneous group of blue members is really blues and greens and oranges and reds and all sorts of things. And it's the data that we have on them that allows us to differentiate between them, right? So it's profile data, it's demographics, it's behaviors, and of course, it's preferences and interests and attitudes and sentiment, right? So those last ones are a little bit difficult to get at, but there are ways to do that. And I just want to quickly, before I move on, I want to emphasize behaviors. And the reason I'm doing that is our trainers and our customer success teams, they spend time on this topic for a lot of reasons, but one of them that I think is kind of interesting. So behaviors are, unlike demographics and profile data, they kind of require no upkeep, right? You provide things, you provide things for your members and your audiences to do. You just have to have reliable ways of tracking their participation. And that is very valuable, data, as we'll talk about later. Whereas things like profile data and demographics, very often I have to rely on you as a member or,
Fill it out.
to update these things proactively. And that is ineffective, very often, right? So it's constant struggle to keep those kinds of things current. So all that to say, don't sleep on behaviors as a way to segment your audiences. All right.
They always say actions speak louder than words,
They
and the
do.
words I give you, there you go. It's talking about the things I take advantage of that really matter more, I think.
All right. Okay. So next, I just want to talk about an example, right? How we see this personalized content in action. And for that example, we are going to be generating some content that we hope will maximize enrollment in this brand new leadership webinar series that we've created, right? So it's content marketing on two levels, right? We have some content, right? The webinars are a big piece of our strategy, that we're pushing, and now we're looking at how we can personalize the communications around that so that we can maximize our enrollments. Okay, so here's what we would call a static personalization, right? And I think this is where most of us are at this point, right? And this is kind of like what I would call a merge and tag method, right? So the yellow ones are the tags. You merge those into an email, and basically everyone in your database gets the same email, right? And I would bet that the link that many of you clicked to join today's webinar was in an email that looked something like this.
I'm having deja vu, Bill.
All right, dear first name, we have this webinar, we know you're gonna love it, and here's the date and here's the time, right? And that's pretty good. That's way better than they used to be. But it's not, it's personalized technically, but it doesn't feel personal, right? It doesn't feel engaging. And so what you could do is you could go for something more dynamic, right? And in this case, you would use you would use an LLM or a similar tool. So ChatGPT, for argument's sake, you would write a prompt and you would ask, through the prompt to write an email inviting executives, to the webinar. And the way that you would structure the prompt, that's a whole other webinar. But the point is that you would ask it to use certain data fields and to create something that's engaging, and you would get something more like this, right? So the main differences here are it's using more data points. They're not just static things like dates and names, but this is pulling data from things like topics, right? So it would be able to determine, based on your history, with other content, what kinds of topics or resources that you'd engaged with. It would use your title, your function, and it would kind of speak to you on a little bit more personal level. And presumably, you would get better results with something that's a little bit more dynamic. Now, any of you are thinking that, oh, this looks more difficult, or this requires me to upload, members' personal data into
Yep.
an LLM, and we're prohibited from doing that. And those are legitimate, right? Those are concerns that we should talk about, and we will. So, but before we do that, just kind of understand that there is a time and place for both of these. For the tag and merge, for many of your bulk email campaigns, right? You want to invite every single person in your database to the annual conference. Bulk email campaign is going to be great for that. It only really requires your CRM and some basic tools, and it's
Maybe an initial renewal notice, something like that is just
yeah,
good for, yeah, just hey,
you
renewals are
know,
coming up. Yeah.
yeah, right. I mean, there's the type of messages where there's just really not much personalization, and
Mhm.
it's you need something that scales really well. On the other hand, if you have this really targeted, series of webinars that's really for one segment or a couple of segments in your audience, then and it's going to be high touch. It's going to be very specific to like the reasons that Merit would want to go to this are maybe different from mine, and you want to be able to capture that sort of thing in your message. Then you're probably going to go for something that is AI assisted. So because I'm kind of assuming that we are using these tools outside of and not connected to our operational data, right? Because I know that that introduces a lot of risks and complexities. We have to be mindful of the amount of effort, right, in the way that this sort of thing scales. Okay. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. So here's one that we're calling the content process, but it's really a process of continuous improvement. I don't know if you noticed, but we've sort of deftly repurposed this graphic to mean something totally different here. And this one is kind of like the improvement cycle between creating creating the segments, then creating the actual content, that's suitable for those segments, and then executing, right, the delivery or the campaigns in your source systems, right? So we are segmenting in the warehouse, the data warehouse, like the Acumen or just directly in our CRM, right? So that's sort of one place. We're then leaving that, by export or similar, and then we're creating the content using our AI tools, right? So whether it's GPT or Claude or Jasper or one of these, and then we have to then execute the campaigns, right? Because we can't really automate that, but we still have to execute the campaigns in HubSpot or whatever our marketing automation system is. So they're basically three separate systems, and the AI piece is still supplementary and not really a fully integrated piece, which makes it a little bit more difficult, but it also alleviates some of the concerns. And then also it's cyclical in nature in the sense that you have to monitor and track, and the AI tools do some of this for you, right? Monitor and track the performance of all those different campaigns, and that then informs future future cycles of segmentation, right? So those are all behaviors, those are transactions, those are preferences and interests and all of that that allow you to segment better the next time. All right. So hopefully that is clear. If is anyone doing something like that, right? Does that, we had several people that said they were using AI, for their marketing, sometimes, or I don't know if anyone said always, but at least there were a few sometimes.
Yeah.
And so does that look familiar, or are you doing something more integrated or less? Is it more of a one-off? Um, is it uh, is it something that is personal to you, or is it, extended out, kind of to your department, or is it something that's operationalized at the organization level? That I should have put a poll question about that. I'm very curious about it.
Yeah, that'd be kind of
If
cool to hear.
anyone would be willing to give us some insight into that, where you are in terms of the level that it's been operationalized in your organization, I think that would be very interesting for all of us. Um, Okay, and then before we get off this, security concerns.
Goodness.
Um, yeah, this is our AI generated security guy here. And
Looking tough.
yeah, so there's a couple of ways, and we kind of talked about these already. You kind of use the AI for the content only, which does introduce a bit of manual, I say manual labor. It's not labor, but you know what I mean. It's a manual part of the process. I've seen a few cases where you can use anonymized data. And what that would look like, it's kind of like, it's a bit tech heavy. That would look like essentially like replacing names with customer IDs in order to upload to the language model, and then reversing that on the back end, right? When you bring it back in to your marketing system. So that may be more more technically than you want to take on, but that's a possibility. I haven't seen any associations that are, well, very few. Um, there's a concept of a private LLM, where it's kind of like a SaaS model, for language, which is probably expensive, more expensive than most of us
Yeah, wow.
would
Jeez.
like, but also, but at the same time, it mitigates, pretty much all of the, security concerns around, public LLMs, and not to mention that you fine tune those models with specifically with your data. So I've seen a couple of webinars. There's probably a small handful of associations that are starting with something like this now, and I think you'll see that more and more, right? It'll become more ubiquitous as the
People see
costs
the
come
value
down.
in it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool. One day. We'll see. Yeah.
All right. So that's personalized content, right? So let's pivot to predictive analytics, and I think the main thing that I want to get across here. You probably seen me talk about predictive before. The main thing I want to talk about here is that uh, it's more accessible, than it has been, right? There are ways to do it with tools like Acumen, where everything is kind of integrated and built in. So of course we're big fans of that approach, but that's by no means the only way to do it. Once you have it, it's great for targeting. All right, so it's great for other things too, but from what marketers care about is propensities and buckets and things like that. Predictive analytics are really great for taking some of the subjectivity out of building personas, right? And putting your members or your customers into buckets. Okay, Cliff, data set interpretations, but not for organizational content and never with identifiable information. Awesome. Yeah, Cliff, I think that's where a lot of us are.
That's where I am. I know. Yeah.
What's the data set interpretation piques my interest a little bit. If you won't mind, if you're willing to share what kinds of data sets you've looked at, and with what tools, that would be amazing. I think
Yeah,
a
it'd be
lot of us
fascinating.
would like to be doing more with that. All right, so Just to recap, we've talked about this before, but uh, predictive is kind of on a hierarchy or a scale, I guess, levels of analytics. We start off with descriptive, what's happening right now and what has happened. This is kind of like your traditional BI. Our reporting is descriptive, right? If we add that element of exploration, which you can do in your analytics platform, then you get to diagnostic because now you can start to answer the question of why, right? What's root causes, things like that, so you can understand context. Now, with a fair amount of wrangling and introducing like a statistical algorithm of some kind to it, then you can get to predictive, right? Now we're using all of that historical data that we talked about, the behaviors and profile data and all of that to predict future outcomes, right? So who's going to come to the event, who's going to renew their membership, who's going to do this or that. And last one is prescriptive, and there is a lot of effort being put into this now. It's like, what action should I take? Right? We all talk about actionable insights, actionable information, but what we really want is the tool to tell us, what the
This is
action
what I
should
should be doing
be,
next.
and so we're kind of working towards that. We like a lot of other companies are working on that, but you can accomplish that with through analysis and through interpretation. So today we're talking about predictive. I think prescriptive is aspirational, for a lot of us still at this point. So,
Interesting.
but when it comes to marketers, right? We have the inputs that we talked about. We have our profile data from our CRM. We have engagement, and in this case, I'm not, usually when I say engagement, I'm talking about like engagement scoring and engagement models and all this. I'm talking about like engagement with like websites and email click rates and things like that. In this case, right? There are there's demographics, their role and their industry and their tenure and that kind of stuff. Behavioral things, events they attended, content that they downloaded or they interacted with, transactional stuff, purchases, that kind of thing. So lots of different kinds of input, but what's more important is the output. So churn analysis is probably number one, right? What would you do if you knew? Like we've done, talks about this. This is the place where we want to be able to analyze, who's going to, why are members staying, why are members leaving, and more importantly, what's going to happen this next cycle and how's that going to affect our revenue. So that's churn analysis. The targeting, right? So that means we're going to break things up into groups, and we want to be able to message, accordingly to each one of those groups. At-risk members is a subset of targeting, really, but it's the most commonly targeted group where we're trying to kind of re-engage or kind of come back with their kind of bring them back into the fold, right? And of course, there's content recommendations as well. So how do we target with predictive? So we use an algorithm, right? In our case, we use a decision tree, a boosted decision tree model. But essentially, what all of them do is they're going to bucket out the members based on propensity. We label them very likely to very unlikely. You could name them 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 or whatever. But the idea is that we're identifying the at-risk populations of not renewing or not attending, or whatever. We're identifying the likely populations, and more importantly, those changeables, right? And all of this can be connected to revenue, right? Dues, registration dollars. That can give you a sense for what it really means to drive some of those changeables to do the things that you want. Okay, so a few ways to do this. One is Acumen, right, or something like that, right? We have this this data store, this repository, and your algorithms and your formulas basically live inside of your analytics application. You can also take the similar approach that we did with the content generation, and AWS has a product called SageMaker. There's Azure Machine Learning. There are other services. Essentially, you can upload your data to, and you can make predictions, and you can even train those models a bit, and it's pay as you go sort of thing. So it's not super expensive to do that. And someone earlier said you don't have the resources. So if you don't have that, I would like to mention that you can do this the old-fashioned way, right? You know what some of the predictors are. There's tenure, there's member type, there's community participation, right? So this is kind of like a rudimentary churn analysis, right? So on the one hand, we have long tenured members that are professional types. They attended the meeting and they're big in the community, right? On the at-risk side, it's just the opposite, right? Low tenured members, affiliate types, didn't attend the event, and they're not active in the community, right? So those are pretty easy to identify, and everyone else that's not in one of those two is kind of like the changeable. So,
Mhm.
not quite as sophisticated, but if you're thinking that, hey, we don't have the resources and we can't do predictive models, yeah, you can get a lot of the same benefits, by doing it what I would call the old-fashioned way. All right. So we have 15 minutes left. So we're going to go now to our a third way, and that's through content automation. And as I mentioned before, when I talk about content automation, I'm talking more about the delivery of the content, what to deliver, rather than actually creating it dynamically. So it's like what to deliver and when, and we're leveraging some of that evergreen content, right? What do we mean by that? Well, you'll see in a minute. So remember, we took our big homogeneous blue group and we changed it into the reds and the greens and the oranges and whatever. But on the other side, we have all of this content, and we have to match that content to the people, right? And how do we know which webinars and which content are right for the green segment and which are for the orange? And if we want to optimize the delivery, we don't just segment our audiences, but we also have to segment the content. How do we do that, Mary? With the
Oh,
taxonomy, he was
why with the
about to say,
taxonomy? Of course.
right?
I was like,
It's
tagging? No, okay, yeah.
it's like, yeah, so taxonomy, it's similar to tagging, but it's
Yeah,
it's more structured, right?
yeah.
So tagging can be, you can tag things with anything, that's already useful, but you really should think about it in terms of taxonomy, and it can be a simple one as long as it's consistent, right? So the idea here is that if we use a taxonomy consistently, then everything that I do or Merit does, every interaction that we have with the association tells you something, right? It says that that we're interested in topics A or B or C or whatever, and all of that is useful. Not to mention that it helps to analyze performance, right? So you can say that, well, look, our content that's related to topic A is doing great, and the topic related to B and C, no one cares about. Like there's literally 0 downloads and 0 interaction. And obviously you would, that would inform your decisions on which kind of content to continue investing in. So naturally the question comes up, well, hey, this looks interesting, but how do we do it? Right. I mean, that seems like if you watched our webinars from a couple of years ago, I would say, look, you got to have a taxonomy, and the best way to do that is to go out and hire a consultant that's going to help you create a taxonomy, right? Or go buy a fancy CMS, and that's going to help you because you're gonna classify things on your website. So, is anyone using AI for anything related to tagging your content?
I know you and I, Bill, were playing around with that a little bit yesterday, right? Just kind of looking at current content we have and just kind of seeing how I was using Claude. I believe you were using ChatGPT, how they would different things would tag content we had, which I thought was a very interesting way of doing it. And maybe I'll take more advantage of that. I don't know. I know Cliff and Chad, he also uses
Yeah. So we
a
did.
pay Claude user. There you go. So there you go.
So we did it. We did it for tagging. I would encourage instead, or in addition to first create that taxonomy,
Yep.
and then
Because
so
I was
that's
getting a lot of weird tags basically
yeah,
too. So
yeah,
yeah. So
right. And it's like it's not that it's not useful, but it's not useful for analytics, and it's not
mhm.
as useful for the kinds of applications that we're talking about here, right? So um, over on the right, getting started. So you have to develop that standard taxonomy. And again, that can just be a pretty easy hierarchy. You have to train the model. And what that means is you got to tag some stuff manually. You got to upload that to the model to teach the model how to tag other similar content, right? So that's the easiest, most straightforward way I can explain that. There's this idea of NER, right? So that's name and entity recognition. So I mean, it's essentially just specific kinds of keywords that are really important, for classifying your content. And the last one, review and improve. Again, like everything else, it requires humans, to make this work. So you have to have humans to validate that your automated tags are working and that things are being tagged correctly. All right. Um, okay, so we talked about um, evergreen content, right? So what do we mean by that? It's basically all the stuff that's in your content library, right? Case studies, white papers, research reports, surveys in some cases, toolkits, templates. I don't know what else, right? What else is in your library that you're sending to members? And so anyway, the point of this is we have all of this content, and yes, we should do like personalized emails to Merit and things, but how do we um, I don't know, how do we repurpose this content and how do we use it, Merit? This is your deal. Tell us about
Yeah, so this has been something I've been working on a lot. If any of the listeners, attendees want to go on our website, you can check out all the wonderful case studies, for instance, that we have around current successful users of Acumen. They're great. They're very in depth, which is oftentimes a way of saying long. And so I'm trying to find a way to repackage them for easier consumption and for people it might matter to, right? No one wants to read a whole case study about one association. They want to understand how many groups succeeded in this one way. And so that's one way where I'm repackaging it. Then I know you and I were talking about this also. When you, for instance, put together a case study, what other different products can you get out of that? Maybe a blog entry, maybe a webinar based off of it, maybe um, a bunch of social media posts, right?
it.
But
Yeah.
that's one thing we're doing is right is turning one or two pieces of evergreen content into something new, and using tools like various AI tools has been really saved me a lot of time on that front, right? Kind of synthesizing a lot of that information into something that's easier to digest for humans. Isaiah Keys has they have a lot of different ones in their org, but personally rely on ChatGPT for both content creation and help and data analysis stuff. Interesting. Okay.
Good.
Anyway,
So
but yeah, so there you go.
a lot of us are using ChatGPT, which I think is expected. Just
Hmm.
another thing might have done in the polls is anyone experimenting with the specialized GPTs, right? The customized GPTs. They
Those
have
look neat. Yeah.
GPTs for everything, pretty much. You know, uh, I can't say that I've done a lot in those for work purposes, but for personal things, for learning and discussions, and kind of replacing, what would otherwise be, uh, a few hours of Google searching and things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've used them. I've used them a lot for that. But right, so anything related uh, to travel and politics and finance and stuff like that. I've spent some hours arguing uh, with the models. But anyway,
You got to
um,
get a hobby, Bill, man.
I know. Right. So evergreen content.
Yeah. So
We
really,
would
it's about repackaging and finding, having the audience and finding the content, as opposed to having the content and finding the audience, or the reverse, honestly, too, and figuring out ways to deliver properly. And
Yeah.
that's what I
Okay.
think, anyway. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So look, so I think we're doing a lot of it here. We don't really consider it AI necessarily, although there are a lot of AI elements to the tools that we use for these. But we use that evergreen content in or content automation in our campaigns, right? So we have so it's not just about delivering like that one right piece of content. It's more about automating entire
Yeah.
campaigns or cadences. And yeah, so what jumps out at you, Merritt? Like what do we um, I don't know, like what do we do in our marketing efforts that uses some of that evergreen content?
So like I was talking about before, drip campaigns, right? I know we've really worked to empower the sales team specifically to kind of help find new prospects with some kind of more automated drip campaigns and outreach like that. Um, General marketing stuff, I think, around our conference coming up. Just kind of give us more time to create stuff that's more what's the word I'm looking for here? I guess refined or more interesting and more granular or more, I don't know, human, I guess. It's kind of putting a lot of the boring work on the back burner or whatever it might be, right? You make a couple emails, you schedule that sort of thing. And then I'm sure, I don't know, I haven't talked to the product team, but I'm sure they do some of the stuff around onboarding as well.
Yeah, of course, of course. Okay.
Yeah.
So got a few minutes left. I'm going to wrap it up here. But that's actually a really good segue into what I wanted to talk about. Because I think the takeaway here and sort of we mentioned at first that it's kind of like faded into the background a little bit. So what I really wanted to emphasize with this is that it uh, we can sort of bring it, bring these things kind of back to the forefront without the massive advances that we might have thought, would have happened at this point, right? So even just taking advantage of the things we're already doing, but doing it a little bit more deliberately and frequently will make a massive difference, right? So just to recap, we're for personalization, we still have to collect, great and useful data. We need it integrated and optimized for analysis. These are the ways that you personalize, right? So this is, one of the newer selling points for something like Acumen is that you kind of need this anyway if you really want to make any progress with AI. You can use the AI for the content creation. A lot of you are doing that, which is great, and you can do it
Wordsmithing, yeah.
without providing your member data to the public LLMs. Predictive analytics are more accessible than ever. You have the data for it. Even if you just periodically upload it to one of those services, right, through Amazon or Google or Microsoft or OpenAI, there's tons of them. You can get insights that are actionable, right? You can bucket your members out, and you can, right, and then you use another AI tool, to craft messages that correspond to each one of those buckets, right? So if you're not doing that, I would start doing that today. And lastly, we want to um, automate the matching and the delivery of the content. So we want to leverage all of that evergreen content that uh, we have, right, and we just need to make more progress at. And I say finally, the last thing is a lot of this was automation, like not fully autonomous AI, right? So whereas the broader AI landscape and technology is moving forward at light speed, we're incremental here, right? We're still we're making improvements to how we automate. We're making improvements to how we save time, and we are positioning ourselves and our organizations, to take advantage when things like private LLMs and things are more affordable, right, and um, more accessible to us. So, yeah. So if you're one of the ones that said you never do this stuff and you don't take advantage and all of that, there's not that much, you know, uh, there's not that much that separates you from those of us that are doing it all the time, because it's still a small, for most of us, right? It's still a small part of what we're doing in our jobs, and we just can be diligent about making sure that even if we can incrementally sort of make it a bigger part, but I think we can make bigger impact with the amount of time and effort that we're spending on it. So, okay, Merritt, I'm going to give you the last word while I show the QR code for anyone that is interested in a demo of Acumen.
What's a good last word? I don't know. Iterate. I've always liked that one. No. No, this has been fantastic. I think it's really just important I like that last point you made, honestly, the automated, not autonomous. It's good to have a person involved. And I think a big key to what we're talking about today is about saving people time
All
and
right.
about saving people stress, that sort of a thing too. But yeah, we'd love to give you like what we do, or just talk about it. I know there could be people in the chat who are I'd love to chat with you about any old stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then,
Thank.
yeah. But then lastly, we are running one of these next month. Love to have you. We're gonna be talking about just those bugaboos people have around analytics and why it's not really all that scary and why your data is a resource we should be taking advantage
All
of.
right. I,
Yeah, scan the QR code, go to that URL, come on down.
I I foresee some AI generated Halloween graphics. Is going to be fun.
Oh no.
All right. Thanks everybody. Appreciate
Always
all
good
the
to have
great
you.
comments and input. And we will see you next time. Take care, everybody.
Have a nice one, everyone.